So bless me to welcome on former four-star top 100 recruit, now the newest member of UNLV, Donovan Williams. How you doing, man?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Pretty good. Well, walk us through this. We know it's a big transition right now. You put your name in the portal. You're already out of it, though. You know your next home, UNLV. How are you feeling right now?
I'm excited, going through the portal and going through recruiting twice. You have a different perspective. You've learned a lot. You've been through college. You know kind of what you want and what you don't want. That wow factor of coming out of high school, being a high school recruit and all the big schools are talking to you,
Mhm.
that's kind of gone by. And so now, coming out of the portal, you're just looking for a situation that's conducive to your best interest. I'm excited. I've talked to Coach Kruger. I've talked to Coach Hartman. We've been in communication for a long time, and I just really feel good about the move going to UNLV.
You just said something that I know people are trying to really talk to high schoolers about, really looking at situation, looking at fit, more than just the name, more than just the head coach originally. That's what a lot of guys do. Obviously, you look at the big programs, that's something that attracts to guys. But how important is it to truly find the best fit coming out of high school?
Well, I mean, it's super important because if you don't, you'll end up in a portal doing it all over again. So I think the biggest thing about it is, when you're coming out of high school, you don't really know what you don't know. Unless you have someone there that can really tell you or has been through it. But for the most part, that's kind of a lesson that you have to learn on your own. You talk to the schools, you talk to the coaches, and coming out of high school, it's all about who has whose fans like me the most, or which coach do I like the most, or which guys out of high school do I want to play with? Do we want to team up? And so
Mhm.
all of that kind of it's fun, coming out of high school, being a freshman in college, that's fun. But once you get to college, you understand that there's a lot more that goes into it. That every day, the behind the scenes work, the things that people don't see on camera, the things that people don't see just when the lights are on. So I think making sure that you really focus in on what's the right school and what's the right fit for you. Because I think
Mhm.
one, you have to first understand yourself as a player. What do you want to do? What are your goals for college? What are your goals for the rest of your life with the game? And so once you understand that, then you can look and you ask questions like you ask coaches, can you help me with these goals? Can you help me achieve this?
Mhm.
And so a lot of times you don't know to ask those questions. You're just going and it's all fun and games. It's cute. Everyone's giving you offers. Um, but I mean, if you don't really take the time to know those things, a lot of people struggle in college just for that very reason.
Mhm. Couldn't agree more. Well, we're gonna get into this whole UNLV recruiting and the whole team in the end, but I want Rebel fans to get to know you a little better. So let's kind of head back because you started off obviously you're from Texas, grew up out there, and you also made your name out there. But what was it like growing up out there?
Being from Texas is great, and I think that's one of the biggest reasons I chose Texas the first time around.
Mhm.
Is because I'm a big Texan. From being from Houston, everything about me, like anybody that asks, they'll know that I'll say Texas is the best state. I'll say Houston is the best city, whatever. And so
Mhm.
for me, I mean, I love being from Houston. I see other people's cities and things like that, but I can't. I've been to other places, but I love being at home. I love Texas. I love Houston. It's comfortable. It's fun for me, and so I
Mhm.
think that was one of the major reasons that I decided to go to Texas.
So now you're going to be in Las Vegas or Nevada this next year. Is that going to be adjusting time for you? How are you used to like how do you plan to be able to get away from Texas for pretty much one of the first times for an entire year now?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I'm actually excited to live somewhere else. Now
Mhm.
I've lived in Texas all my life, except for 1 year when I lived in South Carolina. But
Mhm.
other than that, I've lived in Texas, whether it was Houston or Austin. So now I get a chance to go experience a new place. I get to go to Las Vegas, which is fun, the bright lights and everything. But not saying that I'm tired of being in Texas, but
Mhm.
it's definitely cool to now, kind of get outside my comfort zone and really just go experience and explore some new things.
We know that Texas as a whole is one, if not the best basketball state too. They're constantly producing talent, especially this young group. The past five recruiting classes are so low with talent. What's it been like growing up in that atmosphere where you have all this talent around you, competing against the top talent? Like, what's it just been on the basketball landscape?
I'll be honest that the thing that people say about the Houston versus Dallas rivalry,
Hmm.
it's real. And not even just Houston versus Dallas, but It's just Texas as in general. I came out in a class with, Drew Timme, Tyrese Maxey, Davion Harmon, guys like that. So being in Texas, like there's always a fight, no matter what city you're from, no matter where you go, everywhere you go, there's going to be competition. And so I think that's being from Texas, it breeds you to be a competitor. Like, I don't know too many people that are too many basketball players or athletes from Texas that aren't fierce competitors, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, because we do breed a lot of athletes. And so everywhere you go, whether it's an AAU tournament or it's a high school tournament or it's high school game or whatever, like you're always trying to prove to yourself that like I'm better than the next guy, or it's always a fight. That's the one thing you learn about playing in the atmosphere of Texas. Everything is a fight. Everything is a grind, and so everyone is good. And so every time you play and every way you show up, you gotta have your A game or you'll be exposed.
Was there a guy, you just mentioned some of the guys in your own recruiting class, but was there a guy growing up that you really enjoyed going up against? Like if your two schools matched up, that's the game you're circling because you want to go play that guy?
I would say maybe one guy that I played a lot was RJ Hampton growing up. They used to always his dad used to coach a team called BU Nation. They used to always change their name. They're like BU Nation, and they were BU All Stars and Donovan Williams Elite. But I always used to play against them, whether it was in Houston or whether it was in Dallas. But that was one guy that like you kind of knew, and not even maybe just him so much, but kind of their team, because they would have a team to where it was RJ, Tyrese, Davion, Chris Harris. They had that stacked team. So, me personally, I thrive under competition in games like that. So whenever I would be at an AAU tournament and I'd see like the bracket or the pool and I'd see that they're in the tournament, I'm like, yeah, I got to lock in on that game.
Let's kind of go through your high school a little bit. You obviously go to Fort Bend. Walk us through that decision. Like, why is it the school you chose to go to?
Originally, I went to Lamar out in Houston. I went there my freshman year. And then, me and my mom, we decided to move out to Fort Bend. And so I think, I had the decision to go to either Elkins or a school out in Pearland called Shadow Creek. But I decided to go to Elkins just because, I built a relationship with the coach, my high school coach, Coach Thomas. And that was by far the best decision I could have made. He was a guy that really saw the goals and saw the dreams that I had for myself. And so instead of not just throwing me in the fire, he helped me in all aspects. Like he helped me get ready for those bright lights. He helped me, understand myself as a player, as a man. And so going to Elkins, it was kind of just I didn't really know. I wasn't from Missouri City. I wasn't originally from Fort Bend. I didn't know too many people out there. So I was kind of just moving, not with a blind eye, but kind of just hoping on good faith. And so going out there, I kind of just got to work quickly. I got made varsity my sophomore year, started to play a lot my sophomore year, got hurt, came back and played. And, I was that guy my junior and senior year. So, it was one of the best decisions I could have made in terms of, putting me on the path to where I am now.
I want you to elaborate a little bit more on Coach Thomas, because I know a lot of guys always say that during a high school times, especially for an athlete, having that other like kind of father figure, rather be a coach or AU director, like some kind of other father figure kind of helps you mold into the player you want to be or the person you want to be. How critical was he in really developing who you are today?
Well, I'll say that Coach Thomas helped me understand the immaturity that I had in me. Coming in like I'm, all guys in high school, we just playing, we want to have fun. But, he was a big disciplinarian as a coach. And so, he saw the talent that I had and he saw, what we had on the team and where we were going to go. And so he understood that, for him, he was a coach that knew how to do a lot with just a little. He took the year before I got there, he took a team with no Division I players all the way to the state championship game, lost by 3. And so for him, he understood the game. He understood basketball. And so I think when I got there and we met, we were able to, we were able to click immediately. We never went through like a rough patch or anything.
Mm-hmm.
He was always there to really help me understand how to be the type of man and how to be the type of person that I want to be in life, not just on the basketball side of it, but off the court, and if there was ever anything I needed in school or in class, or if I ever just needed to talk to him, he was always there. And he was always understanding of, the AAU climate. Before I got there, the AAU climate hadn't really kind of hit him that much. I was actually his first major high school recruit. So, coaches was coming to class and they were coming to school and they were talking to him. And so once he kind of saw all of that developing, he really kept just urging me and pushing me to kind of just be on the straight and narrow, be on the right path, do the right things so that, when I get my chance and I get my opportunity, I can make the most of it.
We'll kind of skip over a little bit over your sophomore year, but overall, you aren't as productive as then you are your junior year. But overall, like, how are you able to make that jump? Because you go from averaging about 3 points around that your sophomore campaign, all of a sudden coming out your junior year, you average 13 points, a lot of rebounds, a lot of assists or steals. You guys go 29 and 12. What led to that massive jump from your sophomore to junior year?
I would say it was. I got hurt my sophomore year. I injured my knee.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really play that many games. I was actually playing behind our best player. So I just took that time in that year to learn. I practiced a little bit, got healthy, played in a few games. And so coming back, me and Coach Thomas talked a lot that summer going into my junior year. Like, we understood that, for us to be successful going forward, that I was going to need to be in the right mind space mentally and physically. So, got in the gym, worked really hard, and really kind of just me personally coming back off that injury, I was really fired up. So going into that AAU summer, I played with Texas Pro that year. And, I just took everything. I kind of took everything personally. I hadn't played in a while, so I was just really ready. And I would say not anxious, but I was really just ready and excited to get back to playing ball. And so after having, I had a good year that summer. And so I just kind of want to keep carrying that momentum. Like, I was ready to be that guy and kind of take hold of a team offensively and defensively. And Coach Thomas, he let me do that. We had guys my junior year that were seniors.
Mm-hmm.
And those are to this day some of my best friends. And so we all just came together and we were just like, well, we want to win. And so, there was never really a dull moment that year. We all had goals, and our one goal as a team was to make it to state. And so we fell short the game right before going to state, and it was a heartbreaking loss. But it was one of those years to where you can't just throw it away, because we learned. I learned so much. I had a lot of fun, and that was the first year where I was really able to say to myself, like, okay, I can kind of do this thing the way I want to do it.
Obviously, no one wants to go through an injury, and you also have one then your freshman year in college too. But there are something that people can say, like, when you're not on the court, you're having to sit back, kind of watch the game from a different angle. You're not obviously able to play. How much did that kind of help you? Whatever you're able to grow from during that time span of sitting out, like, how much did that help you in the long run throughout the rest of your career, and then obviously the one in college too? How did that kind of help you to mature and develop?
Well, I will say that the thing about being injured and sitting is you get to learn. You get to watch and you get to see, okay, when you're on the bench during the games, you're looking like, okay, this is what their defense is doing, or this is how their offense is ran. Mm-hmm. And so from a sitting standpoint, it depends on the type of person. You can sit there and be upset and sulking yourself and talk about, oh, woe is me, I'm injured. Or you can actually take that time to really just pay attention to what's going on. So now when it's your turn to step up and step into those roles, you've already seen that. So, that next time you get to step on court, what the defense is like. Where the gaps are. Where it's easier to score. You've seen, what kind of calls the refs are calling. Those things. And I'll also say that the one thing that being injured does, it can go two ways. For me as a player individually, it just built a hunger in me. I've been injured, multiple times. And so every time I'm injured, I'm sitting there and it builds that hunger, that fire, that passion. Like, cause when you're playing the game and you play every year, month in and month out, it's like now basketball in and of itself, high school and especially high school, but even college, has almost become a year-round sport. Mm-hmm. And so you almost don't really get a chance to really just appreciate being able to play the game at your fullest capability. Mm-hmm. And so like when you're hurt and you're injured, that fire just, okay. Like whenever I step on the court, like they gotta feel me. They ain't seen me in a minute. Mm-hmm. They haven't seen me in, maybe a month or two, or depending on how long the injury is, in your head, all you're like, man, I gotta be different. I have to be better. I have to have excelled from the last time people saw me. I can't be the same. I can't be the same guy I was before I got injured. So for me, like every time I get injured, going through the rehab process, it's like, okay, I got to be different. I got to be better. I have to be a 2.0 or a 3.0 version of, what I was.
You then decided to go take the PCM route. You play in the Nike UABL circuit. And that's really where you blow up. Like that's the summer after junior year that you really get hard to get all the attention on you. You start getting write-ups about you. The rankings start flying up. You got all these offers coming in. How did you handle that? Because dealing with the first few years of not having that much busyness, having all that attention on you, how did you become accustomed to having this much of a spotlight now on you?
Honestly, I didn't really have much time to become accustomed with it. For me, that all kind of happened very quickly. It started maybe right spring. That first tournament, my last year of AAU, I had a good first session in Peach Jam. And so that move to go to Houston Hoops was a big decision, being from Houston, and having spent 2 years with Texas Pro in the Adidas circuit, it was already kind of known that I was going to, or expected that I was going to go back and play with them and really just be the man and kind of take over that team for my last year. But I kind of sat and I wanted to challenge myself. Everybody was talking about how the EYBL was the circuit to be on. That's what the competition was. Mm-hmm. And so, I'll be honest, I actually tried out for the Houston Hoops. I want to say it was maybe my freshman summer that year. The year going into my freshman year of high school, I actually tried out for Houston Hoops and I didn't make it. And so I actually didn't even end up playing AAU that year. I just trained. And so when I was actually presented with the opportunity to go, everyone was like, a lot of people in Houston, they were like, that's not the best move. You'll be like that team. Like I said, it was me, Chris Harris, Davion Harmon, Tyrese Maxey, Dylan Disu at Vanderbilt, De'Aaron Tucker, Bryce Okpo. And so I was the only guy from Houston on the team called the Houston Hoop. And so like for me, everyone in Houston was like, oh man, you can't go over there. Like they're not gonna pass you the ball, you're not gonna play, you're not gonna do this, you're not gonna do that. And so for me, I just saw it as a challenge. Like, I mean, okay, like I could, it's easy. Like the easy thing is to go, and play with Texas Pro and do that. But, am I getting myself ready for where I want to be at? If the best competition is on the EYBL, then I mean, that's where I need to be. And so, like I said, like I took everything that people said, I took it to heart. Like I took it as a challenge. So I went in with the idea like, okay, they're doubting me, so I got to play. So played the first few sessions, played well, and then eventually I just kept working. Like I was able, by the time Peach Jam came, I was able to work myself into a starting position on the team. And I think if I remember correctly, like I averaged like 13 and 6 at Peach Jam, being a fourth option. So I think for me, everything about that was just like, I got to prove people wrong. I have to prove, not even just to them, but prove to myself that like, I could do this. Whatever people say to me, like it doesn't really matter. As long as I get in the gym, put the work in, I mean, it's all going to pay off.
You just discussed and listed all those names on that team. Obviously, they're all either in the NBA or playing college right now. What's it like as watching all you guys live out your dream? When you see guys like obviously Tyrese got there, you get drafted and playing the NBA. You see all these other guys playing college basketball, living out the dreams you guys all had. What's it like just watching that?
It's awesome. Like I've caught myself a lot of times just being like, bro, like it's so cool to see. I remember that when Tyrese was getting drafted and he was going through that process, I remember really saying like, bro, this is so cool. Cause like I didn't really have before then like any guys that I really knew or that I was close with in the NBA. So to see him go through that process and to watch him, I was just like, man, like it's cool. Like I still talk to him this day and I would text him, I'd be like, bro, like keep going, bro. Like, you know, we're behind you. We see you. You know, I'll meet you there in a year or two. But it's really just fun to watch, like, because for me, like, I'm a big guy. I'm big on like friendships and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so to watch, you know, Davion thrive at Oklahoma and Chris thrive at Oklahoma State and Tyrese do his thing at Kentucky, De'Aaron doing good things at Oregon State, Bryce doing great things at Grand Canyon, and then Dylan at Vanderbilt, like, just to see people that I really know and really created a bond and relationship with, you know, have success, like it pushes you to want to have success too, because you want to be a part of that. You know, when you talk and when we have these conversations, like you want to be able to say like, you know, we're all doing good, not just, you know, y'all are doing good or I'm doing good, but as a group and as a whole, like we're all thriving and we're all succeeding. So I'll say for me, like even now with my teammates from Texas, Kai Jones and Greg, just watching them go through all that, and especially Kai, like being with him the past 2 years coming in our freshman year, like that's a guy that I can consider like one of my best friends for life. And so we've had all the ups and downs emotionally, mentally, physically that you can go through in college basketball. And so now to see him really just actually making it, you know, right now, getting ready for the draft, preparing for pre-draft, like it's just exciting to be a part of it.
You then hop into your senior campaign. That really was your biggest year, obviously 18 points per game. You guys go and have a 30-win season. Walk us through your senior year.
I mean, most people don't even know right before my senior year started, I injured my groin. And so that whole year, I played on a bad groin. Like I was actually supposed to rest it. I mean, and it was funny because I injured it right before the season started, maybe like in September. I think it was October. Mm-hmm. And so I was actually supposed to miss from October, all our games from October to January. I was supposed to start playing, you know, once we got into conference and district play. But we had a game against DJ Stewart in Chicago. That was the first time Elkins had ever been invited to like an out-of-state tournament. Mm-hmm. And so I couldn't not play. Like it was in November, and it was that weekend. It was like the first weekend of Chicago high school basketball. So it was Whitney Young. I think who else? It was Elkins versus Whitney Young. I think Simeon was in it. And what is the other school? Morgan Park. Morgan Park. And then what was the school that Josh Christopher went to?
Mayfield.
So they were all in it, and it was 6 teams. And I can't for the life of me forget. I can't remember what the other team was, but it was basically three Chicago teams versus different teams from across the country. And so I couldn't not play. Like I had to get in, and I had to get in the fire. And so, you know, me and my coach, we had talked about, you know, me playing on like a minutes restriction and everything. Like I had been doing well through my rehab and everything. So I had missed our first 7 or 8 games leading up, because that wasn't our first game, but it was theirs. Mm-hmm. And so I just went in and I played. And from that point on, I kind of just worked myself into a rhythm. Like I'll be honest, I wasn't nearly as explosive, athletic as I possibly could have been. Like there'll be days where I go to practice and I couldn't even practice because like I don't know if people understand how a groin injury works, but it almost hurts to walk if it's as severe as it can be. And so there'd be days where I couldn't practice. There'd actually be games where I really couldn't play. And so I think for me, I was able to kind of be a voice instead of leading just with my play. Like I led with my play, like you said, My numbers spoke for themselves, but for me, like I really just wanted to win. Like my senior year, and everybody knows that feeling of being a senior, either in high school or college, wherever it is, when it's your last year, all you really want to do is win, regardless of what your stats are or whatever. You want to make it to the state championship. You want to win the state ring, and you want to do those things in your last year of high school. And so that was my goal. Like whether I averaged 18 or 11, like I just really wanted to get to the point where, you know, Coach Thomas had been there, but I hadn't been there. So I wanted to, you know, be that guy and wanted to be a part of a team that brought him his first state championship. And we had a team and we had a year laid out to do it. And so I'll never forget our last game, the game that we lost. It was the regional semifinals. I had been doing well, like through my injury. Like my injury hadn't really bothered me for most of the season. But right before that game started, I don't know, out of nowhere, I was warming up, and my groin out of nowhere had started like excruciating pain. And so I was warming up, and I couldn't even. I got to the point to where those days in practice where I couldn't practice, it was one of those. But it was the regional semifinal, so I couldn't like go sit down. I couldn't say, "Oh, I can't play." And so I'll never forget. I took maybe about 6 painkillers. I don't recommend anybody ever do this, but I took about like 6 painkillers, and then I had maybe like some ice. I had all the whatever numbing cream or balm that we had as a team. I put it all on. I had that on. I had the ibuprofen, the Advil, the extra strength Tylenol. I had a KT tape on. I was so wrapped up and I was so juiced up that, you know, we went and I played and I couldn't, like that whole game, I couldn't feel a thing. Like I was going. And so then we ended up losing. And like that next morning, if we had won, we would have had to play again the next day. I wasn't able to move. Like it wouldn't, I don't say it's a blessing in disguise, but I'm always interested to see what I would have done. Like I definitely would have tried to play, but I always think it's interesting to see how I would have handled that next day. Cause like literally that next day I didn't leave the bed because like my whole like leg couldn't move. And so I think my senior year, it was all just basically just determination and grit. Like I wanted, you know, desperately to win the state championship. And so, I mean, it was fun, you know, being with my teammates and building the bond with those guys. But senior year as a whole, like, if I could go back and do it all over again, I would. Like, that year was great for me.
Now, we look back at just high school now, over your 4 years through, obviously, all the high school games you played at AAU. Who would be, like, your starting 5 of your teammates? Like, you'd obviously could be in that lineup for starters, but what's the 4 of the, like, best players you'd put in that lineup to form the most dominant Donovan Williams high school team?
I would definitely say me, Tyrese. Man. Me, Tyrese. I would say I had a point guard on my high school team, Heath Jackson. I definitely played with him. He was if anybody's like Patrick Beverly, it was him. Like that's a guy a point guard that you wanna have on your team. So I'd say me, Heath, Tyrese. I loved playing with Bryce, Akpo, and then Dylan. So I would say me, Heath, Tyrese, Bryce, and Dylan.
Absolutely. Well, let's go through this recruiting process thing because we know they'll also be committed to Texas, but like I said, you're a top 100 player. You have offers from all over, and then narrow it down to your final 5: ASU, Texas, Texas A&M, Miami, and Georgia. Well, one of those top 5 though, because like that top 5 spread out all over the country. You got schools in different conferences. Like, how are those the 5 that you came up with?
Well, most of them just came from the relationship that I built with the coaches. Like Georgia, I would say I had a great relationship and still to this day do with Tom Crean. And so, you know, the plan that he had in place for me at Georgia, like what he wanted to do, I really liked his style of development. Like we used to talk a lot about how he worked with D Wade when he was at Marquette. And so all of that interests me because D Wade was a guy that I really used to watch as a kid growing up and admired his game. And so Georgia was a school that I really was big on. I would also say Arizona State, if I hadn't chosen Texas, Arizona State would have been the school I would have chose. Coach Hurley and the staff there, they were great. They were my first official visit. And so when I left there, like I said, coming out of high school, like that wow factor is everything. So I got there and, we went to the football game on a recruiting trip and, we walk in the stadium at the football game. And, just casually, just me and maybe I think two or three of the players that were currently on the team. And we just walk in and we walk into our seats. And then out of nowhere, like their whole student section starts chanting my name. And so I think, like I said, as a high schooler, like I was 17. So like, I was just like, yo, like, this is crazy. You know what I'm saying? And so when I left Arizona State, I was like, yo, like, this is where I'm going. Like on my visit, we went and we kind of discussed just, all the things I watched in practice. And I just really admired the way Coach Hurley carried himself and how he carried the team. Like I said, the plan in place that they had for me was by far probably the best out of all the 5 schools that I went or that I had in my final 5. And so I don't never like live with regrets or anything like that. But Arizona State was definitely a school that I really liked going through that recruiting process. Then there was Miami. Coach Larry Nager was awesome. Him and I think Coach Pooh Williamson. I don't know where he is now. I know the last place he had was at Oklahoma. But the relationship I had with those guys were amazing. We used to talk. Me and Coach Williamson used to talk every day, just about how I can grow as a player, what I can do to be better. And so, like the thought of going to Miami, like I said, that wow factor was just like, Miami, cool. And then there was Texas A&M. I had a long-standing relationship with not just the team, but the university as a whole. I spent about 3 or 4 years there growing up because my sister went there and she played there. And so I almost kind of knew the school and the university better than some of the coaches that had just got there. And so I had no, it was comfortable for me. Like when I went on my visit, everything was cool. I remember all of this. But as a kid, I usually stayed more on, with my sister on the women's side. So now when it was my turn, it was cool to see everything that was kind of put in place for me. On the men's side, just talking to coach and talking to their staff. I mean, it was all the schools that I had in my top 5 would have been great fits. And so I think for me, just that decision to go to Texas just was about, being a guy, being from Houston, going to Texas, which is the flagship school of Texas. And so I wanted to be able to say, like, I was a guy that was a part of a team that made Texas basketball relevant again. Like everybody from Texas knows, they had KD, they had TJ Ford, DJ Augustine, Marcus Aldridge. We know those guys. So I think the last time that, Texas basketball was really relevant or really good was, I think, maybe DJ Augustine's year. And so I think for me, like going there, it was just about, like, I want to be a guy that's from Texas that can be able to say, like, I was on a Texas team that put Texas basketball back on the map. And so that's why even to this day, even having gone through the recruiting process again, like I'll never say that I had a terrible time at Texas because we did just that this past year, first team in Texas history to win a Big 12 tournament championship. I think the highest we were ranked was number 4. And so like we had a team that people actually wanted to come see. People wanted to watch Texas. People were interested in seeing what we were doing. And so for me, like that was one of my main goals going to Texas. So I wasn't very, distraught or hurt or anything like that. But yeah, I think just from my final 5, that was probably the reasoning behind all 5 schools.
I want to sidetrack real quickly because you mentioned your sister. She obviously played in college. She played in women's NBA for 5 years. Now she's playing overseas. How big of an impact was that in your life to have someone else as a sibling that kind of can relate to? She kind of got experience what you ultimately want to experience in terms of playing pro, playing college. How big was that for you in your development as a player?
For me, like it was, I wouldn't say it was Reggie Miller, Cheryl Miller, because we were so far apart in terms of years.
Yeah.
So I'll be honest, we haven't really played too many one-on-one games.
Mhm.
One, she was always like gone, out moving on the move. So by the time I was really, physically able to kind of keep up with her, she was like going off to college, getting ready in the WNBA because she's 10 years older than I am.
Mhm.
And so for me, I just was able to watch. Like I was able to go to the WNBA draft and attend and actually watch, all those women get their name called. She was the fifth pick. And
Mhm.
so being in that environment, being in that atmosphere, like you want it. Like you want to be a part of it. And that's the one thing that I'll say there's a difference between the men's and the women's side of it all, because the women's side is great, but
Mhm.
the men's side, it's much more that goes into it. The lights, the politics, everything that goes into it. On the men's side, it's on a much bigger scale. And I think people understand that, but having been with her, like I can still remember, her games in high school. Like she literally used to sell out arenas in high school back home in Houston. And so
Mhm.
I remember being in that. And so like we even still to this day just talk about um, just how that has kind of shaped me as a player, as not really much as a person,
Mhm.
but as a player, just watching her and watching her go through it. Like I used to watch her every day get up and go work out, even if she didn't want to. I watched her miss her prom. I watched her miss all the little things that she wanted to do as a normal high schooler that she wasn't allowed to do because she was the number one player in the country. She had to go. I was there that year. She went to the McDonald's All-American game, and it was guys like that was actually John Wall's year, but he wasn't able to go. So there were guys like DeMarcus Cousins,
Mhm.
John Henson, Peyton Siva. I think I may be wrong. Don't quote me on this, but I think Thomas Robinson,
Mhm.
DeMarcus Cousins. So I was there. I watched all that as a kid, being 9, 10, 11, 12, just watching all of that. Now, when it was my turn, I'm like, yeah, I'm ready for all this. I've already seen it. And like I said, it's a little bit different, a little bit more exaggerated on the men's side. But
Mhm.
just watching her go through all that and watching all the sacrifices she had to make her dreams come true, it really helped me understand that, once it was my time, I had to remember like there's sacrifices that need to be made, and
Mhm.
you can't run from it, you can't shy away from it, you can't try to have your cake and eat it too. If you want to be what you say you want to be, there are things that you got to give up for it, and there are things that you got to do for it. And so I think she was a big help for me to understand that lesson.
I do have to ask you though, did you guys ever play one-on-one games? I know a lot of siblings said because of the pandemic, everyone came home. It might have been a little bit easier. But have you guys got any one-on-one games in the past year or two?
The last time we played one on one, this was okay. The last time we played one on one was not my last year of AAU, but the year before that. My last year playing with Texas Pro.
Mm-hmm.
We went out there. We had that last big tournament in Vegas, and so at the time, she was actually living in Vegas, and she was playing for the Las Vegas Aces. And
Mm-hmm.
so she lived out there. I went and stayed with her. And so after the tournament was over, I stayed maybe about a few weeks with her and worked out. Um, and we were like in LA, we were in Vegas. And I remember distinctly the last time we played one on one, we were in like a, a YMCA somewhere in LA,
Mm-hmm.
and I was winning. And she had got upset. And well, she wasn't really upset, but she, being the older sibling, like, and I was kind of talking my noise, so it was kind of getting to her. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was guarding her like on the elbow, and she did like a pivot, and not purposely, but kind of purposely hit me with like an elbow. And I blacked out, and that was the last time. That was the last time I hit the floor, blacked out, came back to. But yeah, that was the last time we played one-on-one, because now she understands that, like, the one thing that she used to have on me was just size. She was 6'4", she was bigger than me. But now, like, I have the skill, I have the size, I'm faster than them. Like, I have her beat in all those areas and all those categories. So, like, she literally will say, like, I'm not playing you anymore. To have that satisfaction of an older sibling and be like, yeah. Because we never even finished that game. I think I was up maybe like 2 points. And so after she elbowed me, blacked out, my mom got upset. She was like, don't elbow him. And so we kind of had to end it there. And so we never really was able to finish that last game. And so I think for her, she's like, well, I'm good with that. Like, me personally, I'm not good with it. I want to play again, at least if it's to like 3. But she's like, nah, we're not gonna play, just so she can have that satisfaction. So it's that fun sibling banter, sibling rivalry. But you know, I may be able to get her in the gym one last time and get her going.
Obviously, for you two both to pan out the way you guys are, your mom obviously has been huge for you guys' life. How has she really helped mentor you guys? How has she helped get you both to become the people you guys are today?
The one thing about my mom is, like, she's the hardest worker you'll ever meet. Like, my mom, I actually just told her the other day, like, she doesn't stop moving. Like, she's always doing something. She's always in on something. And so for her, well, for us as you know, children, you know, we see growing up, we see the sacrifices she made. Like, she's went through maybe like 2 or 3 cars just for like having driven across the country, road trips. Like, she literally will pack her whole life up and move just to make sure that we feel comfortable. Like, that year I said, you know, I lived in South Carolina, that was my sister's freshman year of college. She had committed to the University of South Carolina to play with Don Staley. And like, my mom literally, like, in the middle of the night, we just was like, you know, well, you know, she's gonna need us there her freshman year. We can't let her go across the country by herself. So literally, me and my mom, we packed up and lived in South Carolina for just a year. And so my sister, you know, she transferred back to Texas A&M and finished out her college career. But the thing about my mom is, like, the one thing she preaches to us is that if you're gonna talk it, you gotta walk it. Whatever you say and whatever you tell people that you're gonna be about, you have to show that you're about that. Like, you can't tell people, oh, I'm a hard worker, oh, I'm in the gym, oh, I'm this, oh, I'm that, and sleep in. You can't say you want to be this, I want to have all these accolades, I want to have these achievements, and not go hard for it when it's time. So the one thing that she understood, you know, growing up, you know, she's a coach's kid. You know, my grandfather on my mom's side, my mom's family is actually from Galveston, Texas. And so the high school that Galveston, Texas is kind of like a small island to where everyone kind of knows everyone. And so there's really just one high school for that whole city. And so my mom's whole family is from Galveston. And so my grandfather actually is in the Texas Coaches Hall of Fame for the track. He has like 5 state championships and everything like that. And the actual football stadium in Galveston is named after him. And so growing up, my mom was the only kid in the family that wasn't an athlete. You know, all my uncles are, you know, state record holders, Texas relay record holders. They were all track athletes, football athletes. And so my mom, she was the nerd, kind of. She was not spelling bees, but she was student council and student government and homecoming queen and prom and all of it and everything like that. So for her, like, she just made sure to urge to us that sports isn't the only thing that you can be about. And I'm not going to let you only be about sports. I'm not going to let you just be a basketball player. So she taught us, you know, when we speak, to speak with intelligence. You know, when you talk, speak with confidence. Let people know that you mean what you say, and that you're actually about everything that you say. So for her, she just urges us to be the best possible versions of ourselves, no matter what people can say, and I'll always say that she's almost a little bit more, what's the word? I would say that she gets a little bit more offended than we do when people say things about us. Like that year, like I said, when people were saying all those things about me moving and going to play with the hoops, she was like, she urged me, like, if there was ever a day where, you know, I was not moping, but if there was ever a day that summer to where, you know, I was moving slow or didn't want to go to the gym or something like that, she was like, yo, like, remember what these people said about you. Remember, like, you can't let yourself down. Like for her, it's like, yo, I have two of the, like, in her mind, she's like, I have the two best children in the world. So for her, it's like, whenever y'all go out there, just make sure you're putting on a good representation for your family, for me and your dad. Just go out there and put our family in the best light possible. And so I think that's one thing for us that we'll never forget and shy away from. You know, when the bright lights come on, you know, we always perform because that's what we were taught and that's how we were brought up.
Let's get into this Texas career of yours, because obviously it's been a 2-year journey for you. You guys had ups and downs. Obviously, you've had some moments of shining, but also probably wasn't the dream scenario that you probably originally wanted. But there's one thing I got to touch upon first, and that's Coach Shaka Smart, a great coach we know now is out there at Marquette. But one thing about him we saw a big transition from last year to this year was the hair, especially you saw him originally from being with his bald when he was recruiting you in your freshman year. Then he comes back after this whole COVID pandemic and has a different look. How did you get used to that? And how were you aware it's going to take the change? Like, walk us through the whole hair changing of Coach Shaka Smart.
I would say during the pandemic, all we could do, like as a team, we could only Zoom. And so I think almost every male adult was just during the pandemic kind of just growing their hair out, whether it was a beard, whether hair or both. And so the one thing about Coach Smart was that he would always say, like, you know, I like being bald. I cut my own hair. You know, this is how I like it. I don't want to grow hair. And so we kind of saw as a team, like when we would be on our Zoom meetings, we kind of saw him. He would always wear hats. And so, but you could see like the hair kind of sticking out from the backs and from the sides. And so we were like, Coach, you growing your hair out? And so he was like, yeah, I'm going to cut it down soon whenever the season starts. And when, you know, whenever we're able to get back going. And as a team, we just told him don't do it. Like we were just like, it was so interesting to see him actually have hair because we honestly didn't think he could grow hair. So we were like, you can grow hair, like grow it out. Let's see where it goes. Let's see where it goes. And so I would say, like, as players, we were kind of the biggest advocates for him growing his hair. Like I think he really wanted to cut it once we were able to start. I think he's, even as we told him to, I think he still wanted to cut it after the kind of pandemic was over, but we kind of urged him not to. And I remember being the guy that I said, you know, this is a new Texas team, you know, shit, keep the hair. Let's show people that we're about business. This is a new team. This is a new year. I actually said, you know, kind of like I think I made a reference to the Last Dance videos, and so I was just like, man, you know, rock out, Coach. You know, you never know this. You never know. This could be our last year. This could be your last year. You never know what may happen. So just rock out one time for the one time. And he was just like, you know, I'm gonna give it a try. And so I think over the course of the season, he kind of just grew a liking to it. And I think he actually heard, or he would notice, you know, people would talk about him about his hair. And so I think for him, he took that on as a challenge too. He was like, oh, okay, some people like it, some people don't. But the one thing about him is that he's one of those guys to where he's completely kind of secure with himself. So he's like, I mean, if they don't like it, they don't like it. But as long as I like it and my players like it, that's kind of all that really matters to me.
You got to kind of give us Coach Shaka Smart on off the court guy. I feel like he's one of the coaches that you kind of would have an idea what he's like off the court because he's always energetic, he's always funny. But explain to us, like, when you guys are not talking about basketball, like completely removed from the basketball world, what's it just like on the personal aspect and his personal side of him?
He's a very spiritual guy. So like when we're not talking about sports, like a lot of times when we got back, we were talking about, you know, the things that were going on in the country, the things that were going on in the world as a whole, how the pandemic was affecting people, how, you know, the racial tensions and everything that were going on at the time were affecting people. And so for me, And him, you know, I think he's one of the guys that, like you say, like you kind of have an idea of who he is off the court. But he's a guy that's really big into his spirituality. He wants people and he wants his players to be more than just basketball players. He wants us to be great young men. He wants us to be really intelligent young men. He wants us to be able to know how to speak and communicate, you know, how we're feeling effectively. And so I'll say over every day, this past season, every day he would send us, you know, books, and like he's a big reader. And so he would send us pages out of these spiritual books that he would read, and you know, it'd be just literally just one page, and he'd send it early in the morning when he wakes up. And, you know, we'll read it. Well, he didn't really kind of care if you read it or not, but he really just urged us to read it to kind of just understand ourselves better and to kind of get out of, you know, those negative and destructive habits that, you know, we as people in general have. So I'll say to this day, like he was a guy that he started, you know, me getting along, you know, a spiritual path. Like I started reading books that, you know, he would send me. He's a guy that's big into meditation and all those different types of things. And so I kind of learned a lot of that side from him. So I think off the court, you know, I think people may think they have a really good idea of who he is, but like, yeah, he is that very energetic guy, because he's a guy he's energetic about everything. Everything for him is okay. Everything is good. He's like, you know, during the pandemic, there wasn't, oh, we have to play, or, oh, this. It's like, yo, we get to play. Like everything that he wanted to urge to us that everything that you do in life, you get to do, you're allowed to do. So just be happy. Don't look into, you know, don't dwell on the negatives, or don't dwell on, you know, the things that you can't really control. Focus on what you can control. And the one thing that you can control is your own happiness, your own mind. And so he's a big mindfulness guy. And so I learned a lot of lessons from him this year.
How about your freshman season? Because you personally now, you come in as this top 100 recruit. You've just been dominating now for 2 years, almost 3 years straight now. And obviously you come down, you don't really get the opportunity, the minutes you probably originally were expecting or wanted. How are you accepting that? Like, what was going through your mind? How did you handle really having a lesser value than you have had now for the past couple of years?
It was hard. And I'll tell people, like, I won't shy away from and saying, you know, how I feel about it and everything about that at the time, because me and Coach Smart actually had conversations about it. But, you know, being the guy that I am, like, it was hard because, like I said, the one of the biggest reasons I, you know, made that move to go to Texas was to put Texas back on the map. And so I was able this year, you know, with the help of Coach Smart and those things that I was able to learn, you know, in a spiritual way off the court. My spirituality off the court really kind of helped me on the court. You know, I won't lie, like there would be games to where, you know, we won and I was really excited because I was able to get to the point to where it didn't really matter if I kind of played or not. Like I really believed in the dreams and the things that we were talking about as a team. And so before the season, like we really felt like we had a team to do the things that we did this year. We felt like we had a team good enough to win the Big 12. We felt like we had a team that could make a deep run in the NC2A tournament. And so for me, as the season went along, yeah, it got tough. Like there would be times to where, or there would be games to where you know, we won and I'm very excited as, you know, in the moment when we won. But, you know, when you go home and you get by yourself and you're thinking about it and you're thinking back on it, you're just like, man, well, you know, I do want to play. Like as much as I'm really excited, I'm happy that we're winning. Because the one thing about it is nobody wants to sit on the bench and lose. So, I mean, for me, I wanted to say, I mean, at least, you know, if I'm sitting, like, let's win. Let's be a team that's winning, you know, not to make me feel any better, but so at least, you know, we're getting something out of it. Like, I was just like, man, like, let's just get this ring, man. Like, let's go. And when the Big 12 tournament started, we was just like, man, let's get this ring. Like, whether we play or not, whatever goes on, like, I really want that ring and that satisfaction to be like, yo, I'm a Big 12 champion. Whether I really contributed a lot or whether I didn't, like day in and day out, what you come to understand is whether you play a lot in the game or whether you don't, you're contributing. And no player, it's hard for players to really accept that. And I'll be honest, it was hard for me to accept that.
Yeah.
At the time, like that's why I say my spirituality really helped me with understanding the things that I could control and the things that I couldn't. The things that I could control is my effort, my attitude, and my approach to practice in every game. And so for me, I just went out there every practice and just gave it my all. Whether I was gonna play or not, like I just wanted to be able to say, like, okay, if I don't play, now I can take. I think my uncle was the guy that told me this. He was like, well, if you're not gonna play, take practice and use practice as your game time. So like when you go, like going head to head in practice, like take that time personal. Don't slack or don't defer. Like when you go in practice, just be aggressive because you never know what may happen or what may change throughout the season. So you always want to continuously be ready. And so like that's why I say going throughout that season, I was just like, man, let's win. Like, I'm in practice, I'm a part of the team. Like I'm getting these, like it was basically iron sharpens iron for me at that point. It was just like whether I play or not, like I'm getting these guys, Andrew, Matt, Courtney, we're going head to head every day in practice. So it's not only is it making me better, I came to understand that, if my opportunity isn't right now in this very moment, in this year, because it's hard to say, like it's hard for people to understand that, if my moment isn't in this very moment, then my moment won't come. But your moment will come, but that's the thing about it. Like you have to be ready whenever your moment comes. So that's why I say everything that I did this year, it wasn't really necessarily for that present moment. Like I go work and I go work out by myself and I be shooting and I be working out and I be working hard. And I just say like, I'm not really working for now. I'm working for whenever my opportunity comes. So now, like I said, UNLV is now my new opportunity. So all the work that I put in over this past year has prepared me for what I'm about to walk into in Vegas. So like when I get there, the lights that are in Vegas, the stage, being the guy coming in, being the starter, being that guy on the team, I'm ready for it because I've put the work in. And, I kind of just did my due diligence. And that's the hard thing for people to kind of wrap their brain around, and especially young players, because it is hard. You don't control whether you go in the game or not. Like you very well can work as hard as you possibly can. You can do everything you need to do and you still don't get in. And so for me, I've been able to accept and understand the things that I can control and the things that I can't. And if I can't control it, I work my ass off to control it. If I can't, I just let it be. And, I kind of let the universe and I kind of let God just really kind of do their thing on it. So that was a lot of the lessons that I learned from, having sat on the bench this year and everything that kind of happened the past 2 years at Texas.
There's a few guys I want to touch up on, just learning from these guys. We know the 3-guard trio you guys had this past 2 years, obviously Andrew, Courtney, and Matt. What was it like having those guys in your corner? Because you being a guard, learning from 3 guys that are all older than you, have all had the tests, the battles, and have all now become elite players in the college world. How have you learned from each one of those 3?
Every day, just playing against them. Like I would say, like this year, the way we practice, all of them were on the same team. So it was kind of, I don't know how many people practice, but most people practice, they're the starters versus the reserve guys. And so I took it, like what my uncle said, like I took it to heart. Like I took it as a challenge to where when I go to practice, like I'm trying my hardest to outplay all 3 of them on the same team. And not just to play, but to really say to myself, when I go home after practice and be like, when I go home and I sit to myself and I think to myself and I can really honestly and truly say, like, I'm a college player. Like I just I deserve and I'm actually able to play and compete at this level. So I think for me, like going up against, like I used to take guarding Andrew, like as I took that very seriously. Like me and Andrew would get into like really not like heated battles where we were fighting anything like that.
Yeah.
But we get into really heated battles in terms of competing in practice because I never wanted Andrew to score on me. And Andrew was by far our best scorer on the team. And so I took it as a challenge to where, okay, now, I want to guard this guy. I want to be able to say, like, I can guard one of the best scorers. Because I think Andrew is by far one of the best scorers that I've seen in college basketball. So I took that on as a challenge. And even with Courtney, you know, when I was on offense, I'd say, you know, I want to go up against Courtney because Courtney is a guy that is known for his, you know, his fierceness and his ferocious defense. And so being a guy that was tall and thin, you know, going up against a guard like Courtney, like that made me want to get stronger. It made me want to be tougher with the ball. It made me want to be, you know, able to make plays when I have someone of his nature on defense guarding me. And so with a guy like Matt, like I had never been used to guarding a guy like Matt. Like Matt by far is one of the fastest players. I wouldn't say ever, but Matt is by far one of the fastest players I've ever, you know, encountered. And so, you know, that would, you know, there'd be days in practice where I'd be guarding Matt and I'd take on the challenge of guarding him full court. Like I want to be able, you know, whether he goes by me or not, like I want to be able to say, like, each day I'm putting in deposits. So at the start of the year, coming back from my injury, like I'll be honest, I couldn't keep up with those guys. Like, you know, they were stronger than me, they were faster than me, they could cut better, they could move better. You know, I had a brace on and everything. And so for me, I just didn't get discouraged. Like I just kept going. Like I was like, when I was in the brace, I was saying, man, when I get out the brace, they in trouble. And then when I got out the brace, you know, I was still going through the rehab process. I wasn't as explosive. I wasn't as fast. I wasn't as athletic or quick as I wanted to be. And so I was just like, man, when I get there, they in trouble. And so once I finally got there, as the season went on, like I was really able to feel confident in myself to be able to guard all three of them, be able to go up against all three of them offensively. And it helped me grow my game as a guard because now I've guarded three, like those guys are three distinctly different players. And so now having been able to go up against all three of them, not even just in live play, but, you know, go through drills with them, everything like that. Like I wanted to beat them in everything. Like they were the starters. I wanted to beat them in everything. So when I go home, I can have the satisfaction in my mind to be like, yo, like, you know, I got it. I'm like that. So for me, like learning and sitting behind those guys, like it wasn't terrible. Like I was able to go in and day out and actually get something out of it.
You also had three big men that obviously they weren't as a competition with you directly, but throughout your career, that obviously in this past year, you have Jericho, which he has a story of rising, obviously all the way to what he became. You have Kai Jones, who was in your recruiting class that rose up throughout this year and really emerged. And obviously Greg Brown, who came as a phenom and was a phenom for a lot of the season. But what were those three big men like, and just how did you like watching them play and the way they worked?
Kai Jones is by far the hardest worker I've ever met. And so me and him built a great relationship and a great bond. Like I said earlier, you know, he's a guy that I consider my best friend for life. And so being with him and having gone through that, like I said, me and him went through all the highs and all the lows. Like we were both, you know, we were there at the time and we talked and everything. And that's why I say, like, being with a guy like that, you have no choice. It's kind of like the company that you keep. Like if that's a guy I'm always around, then like we're in the gym, you know, we're working, we're talking. And so like me and Kai just were able to build a great bond and a great relationship. And like I said, I'm extremely happy and I'm extremely proud of what he was able to accomplish because I know where he came from. I know all the things that, you know, people on the outside or people that just know him don't know. Like I know what makes him tick. I know what he's looking for. I know what his goals are and he knows mine. And so meeting a guy like that was actually very instrumental in helping me become, you know, the player that I actually want to be. Because Kai, Greg, we would play one-on-one a lot. We would play king of the court, one-on-one. And there was always that burning desire to win. Like Kai's 6'11", Greg's 6'8", 6'9", and at the time I was 6'6", now 6'7". So they could both, for the most part, do kind of some of the same things that I could do. Like they could handle the ball, they could shoot it. You know, a lot of things that people don't know about Kai is that he's a really good shooter. You know, he was able to showcase it a little bit last year, but he's a much better shooter than people really know. And I think he'll, whenever he gets the chance in the league to show that, people will really be wowed by that. But, you know, I wanted to win every time. Like, yeah, they were taller and they could do some of the same things. So they kind of had a little bit of an advantage on me. And so I couldn't take them in the post and post them up like a small guard. They were both athletic and quick. And so when playing against guys like that, like it forced me to really find a way to score. Like playing against a guy like Kai and Greg, like you have to find a way to create separation because they both can change directions. They're quick. They can steal the ball. They can block it. And so for me, being the smallest guy, I'm looking at it and I'm like I said about, you know, Andrew, Matt, and Courtney, I want to beat all three of those guys, but I also want to beat these guys. So like now I want to be able to say like I can hold my own with smaller guards and I can hold my own with bigger forwards. So like there'd be days in practice where, you know, I'd start off at some point in the day, I'd be guarding Matt. I'd end up guarding Courtney. I end up guarding Andrew, and then I end up guarding Greg and Kai. Like I was the one guy on the team that could actually guard all the way up from the 1 through the 4. And so I took that challenge on whether there was, you know, whether they scored on me or not. Like for me, it was like, if you score on me, I'm gonna make it as hard as possible. And when I go score, I'm gonna make you work as hard as possible. So I think, like I said, with that team, the one thing about that last year's Texas team is that, I mean, the one motto I can say brings, you know, all of that out is really just iron sharpens iron, you know, from all aspects. You know, even Jericho's one of the most athletic guys I've ever seen. Like I've never seen people do some of the things that Jericho can do. And just he's a very laid back guy. He doesn't say much. You kind of have to get to know him to really get him to talk more and open up. But like Jericho's a guy where he can literally just walk up to he can physically walk up to the goal and take like a 1-2 and put his neck on the rim. And so like playing with guys like that, you see we be in practice and I see Jericho do things. I just be like, bro, what? You know what I'm saying? Like Jericho will come and he'll do maybe like a quick little throw-in dunk, but like his whole neck is on the rim. And so like just being around players and athletes like that, it makes you want, like I said earlier about the hoops or about, you know, the guys that, you know, I play AAU with, it makes you want to be better. It makes you want to be a part of that. It makes you want to grind harder. And so I think even with the bigger guys and even with the smaller guys, like I took everything for me personally as a challenge.
On Texas thing I want to touch up on is obviously the big upset loss you guys just had. You guys come in and obviously win the Big 12 tournaments, all good, but walk us through this whole game. Like, how did this all go down? What was the reaction in the locker room? Like, how did you guys take in the whole upset loss and all what happened there?
I think the one thing that people don't really understand, people didn't really understand about that is, you know, that was a hard environment being in, not even making excuses or anything like that. But by the time we were actually able to get to the game, just having been like, I think we went on a 3-game road trip to finish the season right before the Big 12 tournament. So we were in bubbles that whole week. I think we played Oklahoma, Iowa State, and I can't even remember who the other team was. But we went into that. We came back. We were home for maybe a day, packed, and left for the Big 12 tournament in Kansas City. Stayed there for a week, won that, and then immediately went to Indianapolis to play in the NC2A tournament. And so a lot of teams had to do the same thing. And so for us as a team, man, it was tough. You know, like going into that game, like we understood and we knew, okay, this team leads the country in turnovers forced, whether it's steals, deflections, charges. They're known for their scrappy nature. And so the one thing that we knew going into the game, like we had to be secure with the ball. We couldn't just throw it all over the place because that's how they were going to be able to keep it in the game. And the one thing people know about March is that if you let a team stay in the game in March things happen. And so as that game is going on, you know, we're we go into halftime, like we go in with a 5-point lead. We keep them scoreless the last 5 minutes of the first half. And so we come out and we feel good about ourselves. And then we come back and we kind of just hit a lull. Like those guys have been playing a lot. Like Courtney, Matt, Andrew. The one thing that I give them credit for is those guys have been playing maybe 30 to 40 minutes all the way dating back to the first game of the season. And so the one thing I give them credit for is that like Matt especially. Matt is a guy that I always look to as a leader because he was able, like, you knew he was tired and you knew like he was fatigued and you knew a lot of things were weighing on him mentally, but like he never really showed it, you know. And there'd be times where I knew, because I have a great relationship with Matt, but there'd be things to where I see about him that other people don't see, and I could tell like, yo, he's tired. But in a game like that, like it's no time to be tired. Yep. And so like we just kept going, and you know they were able to ramp up their aggression in the second half. And so we didn't sub much in the second half. You know, we kind of went along, and you know one thing about us is we had little lulls and lapses in our offense and defense in our second halves throughout the season, just because we didn't sub much. You know, those guys, they would get tired. And so there would be times like in the second half, like they're just out there playing, kind of trying to catch their breath to get ready to make that last final push. But like that other team, you know, they're bringing in fresh new guys. So Matt and Courtney and Andrew, they're running on dead legs, kind of going up against fresh legs. And so that was one of those times to where they kind of came back to bite us. You know, that we, like I said, they were able to keep it close. Yeah. And they made some March shots. Like, there you go. Like, I remember 3 distinct shots that they went in against good defense and kind of just threw it up there and it went in. And so for us, like, you couldn't really get deflated about it. You just had to keep going. There was no time to be sad. There was no time to be distraught. You just had to keep going. And so, man, I mean, it was tough. Like, that guy went to the free throw line and we were like, okay, you know, he's their worst free throw shooter. There's no way he makes 2. So we're like, he makes the first one. I'm like, oh man, okay. There's no way he makes 2. He's not built for this moment. And man, he made that second one, and it's like all the life kind of comes out of you, because at that point, everything is out of your hands. Like, we kind of put the game in the other team's hands. And that's the one thing about March that you can't do. You know, when you're in March and when you're trying to win a championship, you have to dictate the pace. You have to dictate the outcome of the game. You can't leave it to chance. You can't leave it to the other team, because it's not conference play. It's not non-conference play. These aren't teams that, you know, have, you know, a 300 record or something like that, under 500. These are teams that are good. Team like ACU, they have won their conference. So these teams aren't slouches. And so you're going in and you're allowing it to keep, you know, we allowed it to, you know, stay close. And down the stretch, like, it's March, and incredible things happen in March. And so, like, that energy in the locker room, man, it was quiet. Like, just imagine just a big NFL locker room. We're all sitting in there, no one saying nothing. You can just hear the air in the room going. And the one thing, like, now, like, looking back on it, we can laugh, but like the only noise you can hear is just Royce. He's just like, Royce was just balling. Like, I mean, it was just an uncontrollable. I think maybe he might have cried for like 20 minutes. And like, we can laugh and joke about it now, but like that hurt, because he was a senior. And like I said, as a senior, all you want to do is win. Like, you don't want to go out in the first round exit as a senior in the NC2A tournament, especially when you haven't played that much. And so, like, it was just, we were all sitting there in our locker room, kind of, you know, some guys kind of understood. And the one thing that we understood as a team was that was last year was the last time that Texas team was going to be together. Like, we knew Kai and Greg were going off to the league. We kind of knew, you know, some things were going to happen once the season was over. So it was almost like a last dance type of season for us. We was just like, man, like, let's go out and accomplish everything that we can accomplish. Like, this is the last time this group is going to be together. So let's make the best of it. And man, when we lost and everybody was just kind of sitting there in that realization of, oh man, this is the last time, this group is going to be together. Like, it was just hard. It was very tough. It was, like I said, it was quiet. And all you could hear is just the faint sound of just sniffles and cries coming from Royce's, or for me, coming from Royce's locker that was kind of far away from me. So, man, it was a tough experience, but it was a learning experience for me individually that kind of helped me.
So then you put your name in the transfer portal, and I think it's kind of self-explanatory. Obviously, we know Coach Shaka Smart's out. He takes the job at Marquette, also just playing time reasons. But you get to take your move out, and you just open up the portal. When you never really know exactly what's going to happen. UNLV hires Coach Kruger, and this is where you end up. Why is it the school you chose? Like, walk us through this whole process. How did UNLV come to be, and why is the school you're going to be attending now?
Well, like I said, so the one thing about going through that recruiting process again, like, you know exactly what you want. You know exactly what you're looking for. You have an idea of how you want to play, the type of player you want to be, and what you're looking for from a staff and a university and a school and a program in general. And so for me, I had all those things, going through that. Like, I just made a list of all the things, I wrote down my goals. What do I want to accomplish next season? What do I want to accomplish for the rest of my college career? What do I want to accomplish for the rest of my basketball career? Because now, making this move and making this decision, like, it's not going to be an easy one. Like, now this is a time to where when you enter the transfer portal, you don't really have room to make another wrong decision. And not saying that Texas was a wrong decision, but you don't really have room to kind of make that same decision again. So you go somewhere, and now it's not, oh, I'm looking for the biggest school to go to. Now I'm looking for a place where I can play. I'm looking for a place where I can not only play, but I can play and be authentically myself. I can be the player that I want to be. I can kind of, have that freedom, and I have that relationship with the coaching staff to do the things that we want to do. And you also just have to have that trust in the staff and the vision that they have for you. Because, I mean, that's the one thing about recruiting is you never know until you actually get there. And so, for the most part, there is a level of trust that has to be maintained. There is a level of trust that has to be built between you and the staff and everything that's going on. And so for me, UNLV, they were a staff that, man, I mean, they talk to me every day. And I mean, as a player coming in the portal, you understand that everybody throws out the word priority. Oh, we're recruiting you, you're a priority. We want you here, we need you here. And as a player, when you're a player, a good player, once you understand your value and your worth, you understand that, everybody would love to kind of have a player like you. But you have to find that school and that team that's really putting in the effort to match the words that they're saying. And so the one thing about UNLV that I loved is, like, they backed up everything that they said. Coach Kruger said, I have a plan and I have a vision for UNLV. I have a plan, I have a vision for you. And, we're just gonna, go through this process, and we're not gonna be all talk. We're gonna show you, like, we're really interested in you. And so, like I said, Coach Hartman from Oklahoma, who's now the coach at UNLV, I mean, we talk every day. Like, he would hit me in the morning, he hit me in the middle of the day, he hit me in the afternoon, he hit me at night, like, all day consistently. There was communication. And for me, that's how that's the best way you can build trust through the portal or through the recruiting process. Because all you can really do is talk and go off of the word or the words of the coaches and the staff. And so, man, I mean, and they say, we're gonna put a plan in place. We're gonna set a team together that we feel that can go and win a Mountain West championship, that can go and make a deep run in the tournament. And we're gonna put you in a position to where you can thrive and do the things that you need to do and things that you want to do. And so it wasn't just they said that, like, they showed that. They said, here are the guys that we want to bring in on this team. And so I commend Coach Kruger because he was able to get every guy that he wanted. You know, Jordan at the 1, the freshman Arthur Kaluma coming in, me, Royce, Vic. And so for him, like, that was it for me, like watching him make all of those things happen. I was like, okay, this is a guy that is about, you know, what he says he's about. And so I mean, they actually made it easy. You know, they talk to me every day, like I said. And so as a player going through the portal and going through that recruiting process again, like, you want to, having gone through, you know, kind of what I went through the last 2 years at Texas, like, you miss that feeling of being a priority. You miss that feeling of being needed. And so when the team shows you that, like, you can't pass it up looking for, oh, what's the big name school? Are these schools going to come? Or are these schools going to come? I want to go here. Like, that's not really, you don't really have that type of time going through the portal over again, because you don't want to run into a situation to where you sitting behind guys again, or you run into a situation to where you don't have a great relationship and there's not a lot of trust built with the coach and the staff. And so I think UNLV, like I said, the checklist that I had made, they checked off everything on the checklist, from, you know, how I wanted to play, the style of play, you know, the situation that we were going in, the trust and the relationships that I built with not just Coach Hartman, who was my main recruiter, but also I built a great relationship with Coach Kruger, with Coach Brandon Chappelle that they're bringing in, with Coach Tim Buckley that they brought in. So I have a great relationship, and I trust, and I actually really, really believe in the plan that they have in place for, you know, what they want to do at UNLV. So I'm excited to get out there and get started.
This is a unique team because it's almost like a Big 12 melting pot. We see so many guys coming from Big 12, from the coaching staff, the guys. But I want to go into this roster a little bit more because, like you said, you have U4 coming from the Big 12, a couple returners, borderline. I got that, I think, honestly, the 5-star Arthur Kaluma. This has got a lot of pieces coming together. It might be a little tricky at first to get you guys all chemistry together since everyone's coming from all over the place. But when things get settled down, when we see the final form, we get start peaking, how special can this team be?
I think the one thing, like, it will be hard, definitely. I wouldn't say hard, but it will be a challenge at first, just getting everyone to gel. But that's why I say I think Coach Kruger did a great job of, you know, actually implementing and executing the plan that he had. Like, he didn't over-recruit guys. He didn't bring in a lot of guys at the same position. You know, he had a distinct vision of how he wanted this year's UNLV team to be. And he wanted, you know, Jordan at the 1, you know, dictating the pace and the tempo of the game. You know, he wants me and Arthur on the wings, you know, attacking, you know, and I think that's a great idea. You know, Art's what I don't even remember, because Arthur was actually on that Houston Hoops team. And so I remember saying when Art was a freshman in high school, I was just like, man, he's going to be nice. Like, there are a lot of freshmen that they were talking about at the time. But I was like, you know, this guy, that he's going to be like that. He's going to be nice. And so it's actually funny how things come full circle. But I think he may be like 6'8", 6'9" now. And so with me and him on the wings and Jordan bringing the ball up, like, it's going to be hard to really understand what option to take away, because Jordan is a guy that you have to focus on, you know, coming off ball screens, you know, handling the ball. He's a guy that you can trust to put the ball in his hands. He's going to take care of it. He's going to bring it up, and he'll make a great play. You know, having me and Art on the wings, we're trying to attack. Like, we want to run. Jordan's a guy that we love, that, you know, you want to play with, because he's a guy that he wants to pass. He's looking to pass. He wants to get his teammates involved. So with me and Arthur running the wings and, you know, filling in those positions on the perimeter, you know, we're going to have a team to where people can't just key in on one specific player or one specific option that we'll have on the court. Because now, like, Arthur can handle the ball. He can get a rebound and bring it up. You know, he can come off the ball screen. I can do all of the same things. Jordan can do all of the same things. So coming off, like, you have to, like, we're actually trying to build a team to where you have to respect every option, because you can't go, like, going into March, like, I think you've seen, like, we saw this year with this year's Baylor team, is that you have to have a team to where people have to respect everyone on the court. You know, you can have guys that are there to I guess rebound and fill in those, you know, those positions on defense, or, you know, make those hustle plays. But you gotta have guys to where even in the bigs like Royce and Victor, and I get they're trying to bring in a big. They're not going to be guys that are, you know, only solely look to just to rebound and, you know, catch fouls. But we want to have a team to where, you know, we can throw the ball inside and exploit mismatches. And that's the thing that I really love about Coach Kruger's plan, is that it's all about exploiting mismatches. And that's how I want to play, because I understand that me as a player, having gone through, you know, everything I've gone through, everything in basketball isn't your play to make. Like, the one thing that people who are, you know, offensive minded or ball dominant, they always feel like they have to be the one to make the play, whether it's a shot or get the assist or get the rebound. It's not really always your play to make. So sometimes you're out there and you're making it easier on the rest of the guys on the court. So for us, like, we're trying to be able to say, okay, when the game is, say, you know, we run into a team that matches up well, you know, on the perimeter. And, you know, it may not be the easiest game for us to go in and score from the outside. Well, now we have a team, we have bigs, so where, you know, we can throw it inside and we can relieve some pressure. And so now when we have bigs that are scoring, and now you have, you know, the defense has to focus on them. Now that makes it easier for us. So like now with our man, you know, we throw it in there and now our man gets to turning their heads and trying to help their guys down low. Now you got slashers, you got cutters, we're moving on the perimeter, you know. So I think that's the thing that Coach Kruger really wants to do. He never wants the defense to feel comfortable in whatever they're doing or however they're guarding us. You know, we want them to always be able to look over the shoulder, like, where's my man? What's going to happen? Something's going on. And there's always some misdirection. You know, we're working over here, but we're actually, you know, setting up an option over here. Or we see a mismatch and we're not just going to come down and just straight ISO, because that's not great basketball. You know, we see it a lot of times in the NBA, but in college, that doesn't win you championships. It may win you some games every now and then, but it doesn't win you championships. Yeah. And so now when we see, okay, Jordan has a mismatch, or Arthur has a mismatch, or Royce has a mismatch, now, okay, we're not just going to throw it to them and say, go to work. Let's put something in place. So now, like, they're not just going up against a loaded set defense, because it's hard. Like in the NBA, you can't just stand in the middle of the paint. You know, you have 3 seconds. In college, there is no 3 seconds. So if you're trying to ISO and get to work from the perimeter, it may work every now and then, but consistently, you have to get the defense moving. You have to have them focus, you know, their focus somewhere else, to where now when you have that mismatch, now that big man, he's not standing right there in the paint. He's worried about something or a screen or something that's going on that may be an option, but that's not really the first option. And so I think that's the one thing I love about Coach Kruger, is he sees the game of basketball the way I see it. And that's why I really believe in everything that he wants to do at UNLV.
Absolutely, man. Well, a couple more things before I let you go. Why don't we just give UNLV fans like one word? Like, what's one word you say would describe you and what they're going to be getting in Donovan Williams?
A winner. I want to win. Like I say, I'm not a kid anymore to where I throw tantrums and I'm all crazy about it. But like, I have a burning desire to win. Like I think I tweeted the other day, like, my goal isn't, like, our goal at UNLV isn't to come in and try to rebuild and you know, be slow and, oh, we're going to take a few years to get our feet under us. No, like, we're coming in and we're trying to win the Mountain West Conference immediately. Regular season champions, tournament champions, and make a run in the NC2A tournament. And so for me, that's all I'm trying to do. Like, I want to go, like, having that feeling of winning a conference tournament in the Big 12. Like, once you get that, you never want to settle for not having that again. So now that it's actually my turn to step into a leadership role and step into a prominent role on the offense and defensive end, like, all I want to do is go into UNLV and win. And not just me, but we brought in guys like Royce, Vic, and Jordan, who that's all they want to do too. We're not bringing in guys that all we're looking to do is score, or all we're looking to do is get ours. We're bringing in guys that, like, this is what we want to do. this is the plan. We want to win. We want to put ourselves in the best possible position to win a 2021-2022 Mountain West championship. But we want to win both, like I said, regular season, conference, and then make a run in the NC2A tournament. So I want UNLV fans to feel excited to come to UNLV games again. I've seen, kind of the aura and the feeling that the fans have had over the past few years about, watching the team and being there, and, not saying that they're a disappointment or anything like that, but, there are, UNLV is a storied program. And so we want to get the same things that I wanted to do going into Texas. I want to do those same things at UNLV. Now I get the chance and the opportunity to actually be a major part of it.
Absolutely, man. I'll wrap up discussing your legacy, because I think all guys want to create that thing for them. So when you are done playing basketball someday, what do you ultimately want to remember for what you achieved both on and off the court?
I will say, when it's all said and done, I just want to be a guy that really just works hard. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have all these dreams and I have all these aspirations and all these things that I want to accomplish. But at the end of the day, like, I just want to be a guy that when people look back on my career and people say, he did it. And nothing's ever been just handed to me or laid out on a silver platter for me. Like, I've always had to go get everything that I wanted. Like, started even going back to, like we said, with Houston Hoops. So, like, everything that I want, I understand that I have to go get. And I don't even want anything easy. I don't want anything handed out to me. I want to be able to be a guy to where when my career is over, people's like, he did everything that he set out to do. And even the things that he didn't accomplish, he worked his ass off to make sure that he was in a position to where he could accomplish those things. Just off the court, it's sad, RIP to DMX, but the one thing that I've seen about DMX, and I've actually been a fan of DMX for a long time. And so you kind of knew the type of person he was, but the things that are coming out about him now on social media, about how he lived his life, how he impacted the lives of others, how he interacted with other people, like, that's who I want to be. I want to bring joy to other people's lives. Like I said, I want people in Las Vegas, and I want UNLV fans, and just fans anywhere of a team that I'm on. I want them to enjoy me being a part of that team. I don't want anyone to ever say, that Donovan Williams, I'm not really a big fan of that guy. If they do, like I said, I can't control that. But, I want to be a guy that's remembered for kind of just living a full life. Like, I want to impact others. I want to have fun. I want to do things, in life that, normal people don't do. You know what I'm saying? So for me, I just want to go and I just want to experience life till its fullest. So when it's all said and done, I just want people to just be like, man, he lived a good life.
Absolutely. Now, my final thing for you, give UNLV fans your 3 biggest goals you have set for your career there.
Conference champion, national champion. Everyone wants to be a national champion, but you understand that there's only one. But in every conference has a champion. So the first thing for every team is always to be the conference champion. You want to have the bragging rights to say you're the best team in the conference.
Yep.
So conference championship or conference champion, NC2A champion. And really, man, like, I have big dreams. So I want to go and I want to be the player of the year in the Mountain West. Like, that's, I understand it. And it's funny, like, we actually talked about it, as a team, me and Royce and Jordan and the staff, like, we all talked about it because we say, if everybody on the team has the goal to be the player of the year, like, we're going to have a really good team. But it has to come from a place of, genuine. Like, it can't be selfish. Like, when I say I want to be the player of the year in the Mountain West, like, that's definitely the goal. But I'm not going to do it at the expense of my teammates and at the expense of winning. So if I'm not the player of the year in the Mountain West, I want it to be somebody from our UNLV team. But as a player and as the player that I am, I want to go and I want to have the bragging rights to be able to say, like, yeah, I'm the best player in the conference. And so, like, from day one, the moment I stepped foot in Las Vegas, like my goal is to win a conference championship, win a national championship, and become the player of the year in the conference.
Absolutely, man. Well, congratulations once again on the new commitment going to UNLV. Appreciate you taking time to come on today, and I'm excited to see what God got next for you, man.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. I want UNLV fans to be excited, and I want everyone that that's following me to really just be excited about what's about to happen.
Absolutely, man. Well, God bless, man.
You too.